Assalamu alaikum. That is, may God's peace be upon you. Welcome back to the power of educating our own. I am your co-host, Marsha Nivens Muhammad, and I am here with.
Quran Shakir.
I'm Patricia Salahuddin. Welcome, everyone.
Yes, welcome back. It feels like we haven't been in this spot in a minute. I'm not really sure how long it's been, but it's always good to be back. You are, again are watching The Power of Educating Our Own. It is a show hosted every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it is hosted by the Clara Mohammed Schools Network. We are a network of approximately 20 schools. Those schools are full-time weekend, which we coin Strong in Schools. And we have a couple of online schools there in the mix. And we really seek to provide resources or lift up stories that help to promote our mission as a institution of schools, but also to strengthen our educators and the information that we share amongst our students. And so I'll turn it over to Sister Khan to introduce our show for the evening.
I am very excited, everybody, because we are in the season of celebrating our founders of the Muhammad schools. So we have celebrated Sister Clara Muhammad's birthday. We have had Founders Week. And now we are going to celebrate this concept, this idea of preserving our history, of celebrating our history, celebrating who we are as those who are the forerunners in establishing Islamic education here in the United States. And I'm very excited that our guests tonight are those who have been producers and creative in producing a beautiful film and documentary, actually, that has aired on PBS, Georgia Public Broadcasting, been at Smithsonian, so many places. And now we bring those creatives here to our space to talk to us about how they came to produce this beautiful film. I'm sure you've heard of it, Clara's Fruit. We're going to find out about the film itself, where it's been, where it's going, and how we can do something similar if we so desire. And I pray that we all so desire, because we do have to be those who document and tell our story. So without further ado, we're going to bring the producers and those who have helped us to come to life with Clara's Fruit. Welcome, Nia Omar, Morgan Matthews, and Rashad Shabazz. Welcome. We are so happy to have all of you here on the power of educating our own.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Hey,
Assalamu
everyone.
alaikum. So
Thank you for
glad to
having
be
us.
here.
Wa alaikum assalam. It's good to see you. And so, before we jump into all things Clara's Fruit, I want to know a little bit more about you all, right? So, for those who don't know you, we want to know who you are, and then we'll jump into everything about the film. Before you tell us that, though, I just wanted to remind our viewers, drop in the comment section where you're watching us from. It's always nice to see where everyone is tuning in from. So for anyone who is watching us this evening, let us know where you're tuning in from. And so I'm going to turn it over to our guests, and I guess I'll start with Morgan.
All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm Morgan Matthews. Thank you again to the Clara Mohammed School Network for having us. We really appreciate the opportunity to share with your audience and our community. But I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia. I am a son, a husband, a father, a brother, a community member. I've been attending Atlanta Masjid of Al Islam for over a decade here in Atlanta. And yes, just very glad to be here. I'll pass it over to Nia.
Assalamu alaikum. So good to see you all and be here. My name is Nia Omer, and I am the impact producer with Clara's Fruit, based in Atlanta as well. I have mostly been in the corporate world, but outside of my day-to-day job, I love telling stories, and film is one of those avenues of doing that. And so part of what has brought me to being part of this project is just being part of a great team, and the Clara Mohammed Schools Network is a part of that, and really learning about the network. So super excited to be here and to connect with you all and tell more about the film. And now I'll pass it to Rashad.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Rashad Mubarak. Shabazz is my last name also. I'm a former journalist turned screenwriter. I really enjoyed working on the project. I think Morgan did a great job directing it, and Nia is amazing. I was one of the executive producers of the project. I My background is in working in television, primarily in unscripted, which is like documentary and reality television. And I think it's important to make stories like this that highlight groups that normally would not get this level of exposure, but they deserve it. I actually went to the school, so I'm an alumni. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you. And so we do want to talk about Clara's Fruits and sort of, where did the idea come from? How did it all come to life? So kind of give us the backstory. Clara's Fruit, why?
Yes, it's a great question. So yeah, I'll start by sharing just some context on the journey of how we got here, and Rashad and Nia, feel free to share your experience with the journey of how we got here as well. I'll start with a bit of a personal anecdote in that not like Rashad, I didn't have the privilege of attending the Muhammad schools. I became Muslim when I was 19, just a couple of weeks before I went off to college, actually. But I tell a lot of people this story. The first Muslim I met on Howard's campus in DC was an alum of Muhammad Schools of Atlanta, Sharif Abdul Malik. And when I met him, he was already married at the time. And I just got to know him a lot more and learn more about where he came from, what school he went to. And fast forward to some years later, he introduced me to my wife, Brianna, who also is an alum of the school. And so clearly there was this, pattern or thread of just great people, coming from this school. And, when I became a filmmaker, as a storyteller, the things that you want to bring to life are things that you tend to, ponder over a lot or obsess with, or things that you just can't let go of asking questions of why or what or how. And so we lived in California for some years, but when we moved back to Atlanta, everything just started happening, I'd say, in divine timing, as life does happen in divine timing. So I met Nia at work, actually, and she had shared this grant opportunity from this organization, the Islamic Scholarship Fund. I had never heard about the Islamic Scholarship Fund, and she was like, "Hey, if you have any idea in mind, this grant may be something you want to apply for." And so I was thinking about, what's a Muslim-centered story that I could submit a grant for, and I wanted to center it around the school because, as I mentioned, there was just so many thoughts and experiences I had with people connected to the school. I said maybe I should explore more, and so we applied for this short film grant centered around the idea of Sister Clara Mohammed. And in the space of documentary, you're learning about what you want to say as you're making it, right? And so in that process of learning, I brought on Rashad as one of the executive producers, this other sister, Aida Aliyah Rashid, Love, Soleil, Nia. So we started forming a team, and in that forming, we started doing research. So I spoke with a number of people in the Atlanta community, but even extended, such as starting with Sister Quran. I can remember a number of conversations of me just calling Sister Quran, talking for like an hour or two in the evening, her just, really helping me think about what it is that we can say or what we can explore. And then from there, alhamdulillah, things just started happening. We started, putting forth the effort of how to bring the film to fruition. But we also leveraged a lot of community support, to make that happen. So that's the background of how the story, how it started. And there's so much more that comes after that chapter. But that's how things kicked off.
Anyone else wanted to share?
Nia, you're on mute. You're on mute, Nia.
I'll more than happy to jump in as chair as well. And I mean, this is a testimony of just community building. And, even though I didn't necessarily have a film idea, in my back pocket, and seeing that this opportunity was available and sharing that with Morgan, and Morgan being able to be willing to take on somebody on the team who was really interested in the project too, because me as a first generation Ethiopian American, a lot of people didn't really know about Sister Clara Mohammed, and I felt like it was my duty to kind of bring that realm into the African spaces that I occupied and the backgrounds that I, intersect with. And just telling Morgan after he got the grant, be like, hey, I want to be part of the team, and being able to be welcomed in and learn while I'm actually like building the plane as we're flying it, right? So I was learning and being able to learn from Rashad and from Morgan really kind of sparked my inspiration with just being around a team of other passionate people around a powerful story. And so I just want to say thank you for taking that chance on me. And it opened up to you all, the community that's even in Atlanta and broader has just been so open and open arms of willing to share their testimonies. And so that was pretty much a shoo-in as to why I wanted to be a part of it and get connected and broaden my understanding of the Muslim experience that sometimes can be limited in a small network like the Ethiopian community.
I think Nia is being humble. She did a lot to help build up community, and to especially when it came to building up and kind of organizing people via media and social media. I think Nia did a great job on that. But I mean, the team was good. So in terms of my connection, or not so much my connection, but just involvement, I think once I learned about the opportunity, I thought it was a great idea that Morgan had, and I wanted to work together on it. And from that point on, after I guess the idea was to a place to where it was more feasible, then we could schedule things and organize the people and the resources and everything. Of course, I had to ask my nephews. One of them is in the film. One of them was taking behind the scenes pictures. Friends, everyone. It's about, with an idea like this, people just want to be a part of it. Of course, we were fortunate enough to base a lot on what the other producers did. We were able to raise some funds to pay for things, but also there were people who came in to support us and worked at rates that they normally wouldn't work for because they thought this was an amazing idea. So I just want to acknowledge that, because I felt like a lot of people came in clutching in terms of helping us.
That's amazing. And so I imagine that this took a lot of research, right? And so I'm curious to know, what was research like, right? Because we don't have Sister Clara Mohammed with us to kind of tell us how it went, right? So I imagine that you had to talk to several different people to kind of capture what it ultimately wound up being. Because here's the thing, right? When you're making these stories, these films, they wind up only being 15 minutes, but you get all of this information and you got to kind of condense it down. So tell us what research was like.
Yes, no, that's a great question. So a lot of the research started with speaking directly to people. So getting, first and secondhand accounts of people's experience that we had direct access to. So even though the film is broadly about the legacy of Sister Clara Mohammed. If folks are familiar with our community, you know that we shot the film in Atlanta, and all of the interviewees are Atlanta community members. But we were intentional about the research and the narrative of the film, not to necessarily be focused on Atlanta, but to broaden the scope of what the conversation was about. So a lot of the early research started with having conversations with community members who either were graduates of even the University of Islam, so going, even previously to kind of the transition from Clara Mohammed Schools. So, talking to former students and teachers who some weren't even in the film, but we just had those conversations with them. That was a big part of it too. There are a handful of books actually that kind of document some of the history of Sister Clara Mohammed School and the University of Islam, such as, and I'm referencing here, but the first national independent Islamic school system in America by Imam Darnell Kareem, In Her Spirit by Sister Halima, Mother of the Nation by Dr. Zakiya Muhammad, Impeccable, Remembering Sister Clara Mohammed. So those were a handful of literature, that we also read during the research process as well. And then a lot of the archival, majority, I'd say 90% of the archival video in the film was also a big part of our research. So Rashad and I visited the home of Brother Hassan Shakir, who is here in Atlanta. So Brother Hassan has been documenting via video our community for the past 50 plus years. And he has an entire archive that was once in his home that filled nearly 2 rooms from like the floor to the ceiling. And so Rashad and I drove. It was a far drive too. It was about an hour drive from where we stayed.
Felt like
drove out to his house at least 3-4 times, and literally like, and this is just the reality, unorganized archive, in a sense of unorganized, meaning that you couldn't just plop a person into his archive and they can find what they need. He knows where stuff is at, and some stuff he doesn't. But that's the reality of, our community's, archive, right? We have an abundance of archive that, shameless plug, there needs to be more intentional investment and efforts in how we archive all that we've collected over the years. But long story short, we went to his home and he just said, kind of have at it, try to go find what you need for this film. And Rashad, you can speak to this as well, but we were literally going through boxes and just hoping that maybe a VHS tape said education on it. And so we pulled probably like 30 or 40 VHS tapes that had something written on it that said education or education conference. And then, we would take those back to my home and put them in a VHS player and watch it for hours and hours and try to, and so that we're doing research in that moment as well. So I made that a long-winded answer, but that's kind of the labor and the reality that went into not only the research, but what ended up going into the film as well.
And I'm trying to figure out where you found the VHS player.
So he loaned that to us. It wasn't mine. Okay. I don't have access to a VHS player.
I was like, wait, I'm listening to you talk about it, and I'm like, yeah, this is interesting. Yes, we have all these archives around the community. I'm like, wait a minute, where did he find a VHS player?
It was Brother Hassan's. He was like, you can take this VHS player too. So that's how it went down.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Dr. Patricia, did you have anything that you wanted to?
I do, and I think that's awesome also. And I would love to liken that just to remind our listening audience that many of you have similar archives. And because we are part of an aging community, we have to look at what are we going to do with all these documents and how do we preserve them. So thank you for valuing it and even doing what you did to preserve this history. So that's awesome there. So just that shameless plug to our community to definitely collect those. Because I just saw something where someone had all these papers, and I know we've talked about how we went from um, the Muhammad Speaks to the Bilalian News to Muslim Journal, and they just shared some actual papers. And I'm like, wow, I lived through it, but I don't remember it. And to see it is so beautiful to see that. So now we look at your research, Morgan, Rashad, and Nia. We look at the research that you've done for Clara's Fruit. And I think it's very interesting that you have delved into a lot of interesting information. And, you know, as also a former journalist, I know we have to take an angle, right? And so you took an angle that was very different for this. And even the name indicates that. So sometimes when I'm talking to people, I help them to understand we're talking about the fruit of Sister Clara. So talk a little bit more about how you came to focus just on the fruit of Sister Clara.
Yeah, and I'll try to be brief here, and I definitely want to hear Rashad and Nia response to this as well. So the idea at the core was, you know, how do we ensure that you know, our leaders and pioneers, that no stone goes unturned in terms of their contribution, right? And what the legacy that they've uh, put forth when they were alive, and the legacy that continues to live and breathe after they've transitioned. And because there isn't as much as we'd like, because I'm not going to say there isn't anything documented about Sister Clara, but I don't think for what she did and contributed to our community and to the world, the volume of what's preserved of her doesn't match what she actually did, right? And so the thinking was like, how do we focus a story on really uplifting her voice, you know, throughout the entire piece? And the title itself was kind of a play on, you know, two things. So as we know in the Nation of Islam, the terminology, the fruit of Islam, right? And so, and then also just the idea of, you know, when you plant a seed, it bears fruit. And so the seeds that she planted and the community planted, that fruit is still producing itself today, right? And if you were to probably, you know, if they were to be able to speak to what has been produced, it's like 10, 20, 100 fold, right? From their original vision, I'm sure. So that was the idea of how we came to that. But Rashad and Nia, kind of getting back to, you know, her question around the importance of really highlighting her and the angle that we took on the film.
Yeah, I think with the idea, I think Morgan did a great job explaining it. It definitely was, to the best of my understanding, the initial idea of Clara's Fruit. That was Morgan's idea. It's a good idea. And I, just listening to you talk, I thought about one of the initial log lines that we were kind of workshopping. We were trying to take all of these ideas and translate it to something small and concise that explains the entire movie basically in about a sentence. In that way, if we can talk about what it is that we want to do that briefly, then it's so much easier to make it bigger than that. Versus if it takes us like 3 hours to explain the concept, we don't really know what we're doing with it. You know, it's organized, it's disorganized. Unfortunately, we were able to come up with a story that worked. But I remember one of the initial log lines that we were workshopping, it highlighted that this was a historical religious community, in addition to Sister Clara being an educational pioneer. So even though these things, they didn't make the final cut, but these kind of ideas, you know, kind of talking back and forth about what we should focus on, it helped us in, I guess, securing and making sure that we highlighted these individuals and people that, you know, are substantial to the story. Because as Morgan said, you know, a lot of people aren't familiar with the story. You know, I had the opportunity to, my mother in Jacksonville, where I'm from, she was a principal when I was a very young child. I always forget that I started at Muhammed Schools. I was in pre-K. But majority of my life I went to public school until I came up here to Atlanta in 12th grade. And one of the I guess one of the things that I try to remember is just how much that Sister Clara just impacted people nationwide. You know, there's so many people who have never heard of this story, unfortunately. And so, me growing up in Florida, I went to primarily the Imam Muhammad's community. But I remember for a brief period of time, I was in a primarily Afghani Desi community. So I was with a lot of, if I want to say, directly immigrant people. And to this day, I have a lot of relationships in that community. And these people have no idea who Sister Clara Mohammed is. And I thought, just from the beginning, even when we were doing our pitch videos, that was something that was important to us. That was something that we spoke about. And a lot of people, you know, there are over, I believe there are over 50,000 students in America with Islamic practices. But most of these individuals don't know that that whole tradition was founded by a Black woman. And it's important for them to understand that. When I was in Tampa, which is not where I'm actually from, but when I was in Tampa earlier this week, that was one of the things that I was telling the individuals. You know, these were many of them were from other countries, where they were first generation Americans. There was a lot of Arabs and a lot of Desis. But I made sure that they understood that, number one, a lot of times we forget the impact that Muslims in general had on America, but more specifically, Black Muslims had on America. And that needs to be acknowledged. And also, I reminded them that this is your legacy as well as Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Good point.
Just
It's so wonderful to hear the story and how you guys got started. I am curious to know what piqued your curiosity. You know, I know you're interested in film and you're interested in journalism and you're interested in storytelling. What piqued your curiosity? What was the driving force? Or what was that? When was that moment that you says we got to do Clara? When did that come about, and how? That you actually going to do Sister Clara Mohammed?
So yeah, so for me, at the core of it, when it was, I won't say it was a very specific like point in time. It was a build up over the years of meeting so many people, including my wife, who had been a part of the school system, and so you grow this curiosity of like, these people who look like you, who share a lot of similar experiences as black Muslims, but they also went to this very particular school system. So it's like, as a storyteller, I'm now curious and getting to the core, right? It's like peeling back the layers of the onion to get to the core of it. And so as you peel back the layers and peel back the layers, you're like, oh, this school system is centered around this mother, right? That's really what Clara Mohammed's story, in my opinion, starts off as a mother first, right? A mother of children who she was trying to protect from, very specifically, the Detroit public school system at the time. Back in the 30s, where her children were in school, and she made a bold decision, as most would say, to remove her children from the public school system because it was illegal at the time, right? So you're dealing with the fear and the threat of authorities saying that we can arrest you for not having your children in school. And she's like, no, I'm going to homeschool my children because that's what's best for them. And so I was very curious about that as someone that's a parent, as well. And so, yeah, for me, it was just the multiple points in a long thread, my life over the years of like, okay, I'm connected to these people very closely who went to this school. Oh, there's this grant opportunity now for a Muslim, story to be told in a short documentary form. It's like I live down the street from the school, so this is all these things that were connecting, and finally it was like this is a story to tell. So,
Alhamdulillah. Thank you.
alhamdulillah.
Thank you. I have a question for Nia. Nia, I am so curious to your connection. How did you make that connection to this story and to the community?
Yes. Well, I've always had a common thread of really advocating for women's empowerment and women's rights. And so, if you kind of look back at some of the things even before the film that I've done, whether it's hosting film screenings for other documentaries like Girl Rising, or hosting, book drives and women's empowerment brunches and things like that. So it was kind of an easy sell when Morgan approached me about just the context of the project. And for me, oftentimes, what we kind of stay in our bubble when it comes to thinking about the Ethiopian, and specifically my city is called Harar, so it's a very unknown city. People don't really know about it. And so I felt like the same way that I want my people to know about my small city, I would want them to kind of have that same approach, thinking about the Atlanta community, but also the broader Black Muslim community as well. And so was really an easy selling point for me. I mean, not even was selling, but also what really stood out to me was at the point where we were starting to look at the books and the archives. I can't remember who the author was, but Morgan shared this dissertation. I can't remember how long it was, but I really sat down and I was like, okay, let me really understand the story. And I sat down and I read that dissertation, and I was honestly just felt the fuel inside of me to say, like, somebody needs to know about her. People need to know about her, the levels and the intricacies of what she's contributed to our society that we still say today. Like, when I see about the Muslim girls training and all that stuff, like, that's my bread and butter. That's what I want to equip young girls and women to learn about. So that is what really kind of got me hooked in. And what I think we sometimes talk about too is that the film doesn't really we're not trying to dispute these common complex layers of belief systems and ideologies. It's about her and her contribution to society. And it's an invitation to explore and to learn more, and to like open that book, open that dissertation, to really understand how, yes, one person that had an idea and stood up for their rights and their self can have like a generational element of it. And then just seeing you all and meeting and connecting with you all, and just how nurturing and welcoming you are, it made me say, like, we need to really bring our communities together. And that's kind of how I've got engaged, and I feel like I'm adopted by you all now. So, so we're in this together.
I
We
love it.
absolutely
I
are.
love it. Yeah, you are.
Go
You
ahead,
are.
go
You're
ahead.
one of us. I'm curious from each of you, as you were doing your research, and I know just because I was here and I watched you as you went through the process, and you're forming your ideas. What stories, what testimonies stood out for you to say, this is a story, we got to make sure we include this, or this one tells the impact of Sister Clara Mohammed? What were those kinds of collections?
Well, we're looking at one of them right now who's speaking, Sister Quran. That was definitely a major one. I like how you did that. If you did that, anyway. But no, definitely. I think, yeah, I'm thinking. I think specifically talking with Sister Sophia Shahid, who's here in Atlanta. Sister Sophia, for those that maybe don't know, she is a former principal, current teacher of the school system, and just one of our, I'd say, it's okay to say, pioneers here, in Atlanta, who's made so many different contributions. And I think, just hearing her specifically share, and it didn't make the film, but she actually got to meet Sister Clara Mohammed when Sister Clara Mohammed, in her latter years, was doing some traveling. She made a stop in Atlanta, actually, and Sister Sophia got a chance to meet her, I think, for lunch or something to that extent. And as she's describing Sister Clara Mohammed, in person, sitting across from her, just her demeanor and her presence and her this kind of regal, stoic, but also warm, nature about her in this petite, frame. All right, like those are the things that just stick with you. It's like, wow, like you get to hear these firsthand accounts. Sister Halima, who's the granddaughter of Sister Clara Mohammed, who is in the film. She's wearing the pink hijab in the film. Sister Halima, that is, and just hearing about her upbringing in Chicago, right, and living and working in her grandparents' home, like directly, right. So you're getting these very vivid and visual stories from people in our community. So those are a couple of things that definitely stand. I mean, there's so many, but those are a couple. Even talking on the phone with Imam Darnell Kareem for almost an hour, and I believe Rashad spoke with him as well on the phone. And yeah, just these are so many memories, so many memories.
Early on in the impact strategy process, and really the impact strategy is about how can we engage audiences, inform them, and get them excited we were as we were doing our campaigns for crowdfunding. People were volunteering their own testimonies. People were submitting before we even had a full campaign of people sharing their stories, were reaching out to us, getting engaged, sending voice notes. So like hearing how excited and the marks that being at the schools left for them. We even had someone submit an audio of them, singing the school song, right? I know there's like a clip of a separate one, but just feeling that childlike and excitement nature from people who were even, a few degrees of separation in other states, and how they wanted to be engaged was really special to be part of too early on.
Yeah, that's great. Go ahead, Rashad.
I don't know. There were a lot of different moments. I can remember being on the phone trying to convince people that, hey, we're going to tell the story the right way, and it's going to be something that you will be proud of, that actually honors the community. One of the most impactful things to me that I had never thought about was Sister Quran, when she was being interviewed in the documentary, and she talked about how they were teaching the adults how to read and write because they were about 70 years up from emancipation. I had never thought about that, but that just made so much sense. But it was showing how they were transforming not just the youth's lives, but all of society. Mm-hmm. I thought that was extremely impactful. I really liked seeing Crystal Shaheed when she was singing the Mother song. I thought that was cool as my sister's friend. So seeing her when she's younger than me, when I've only known her, she's been older than me, that was different. There was one other thing that I wanted to share. Oh, it was interesting, even being over, I know Morgan briefly talked about it earlier, but being over Brother Hassan's house with the archives. He was my journalism teacher. So to see all of these different, I guess, records of history. I remember, when I was a little kid, and they used to film like every week different talk shows and things like that. So to see these physical manifestations of memories, to the point where these things were taller than us. And, in some areas it was packed so much, it looked like it was probably going to fall on us. But it was so much history that was there. And even seeing, like, I think I found my sister's graduation. She graduated in like 94, my sister, she was. And I know I found my graduating class. And Morgan pointed out to me, he was like, I'm not talking. Which I didn't remember, So, I mean, it was one of many reasons why I didn't make the cut. And I was just like, oh, okay. But just being able to look at these things, I guess, from a different vantage point than what you remember. I thought that was important.
Yeah, that sounds really cool, right? And as I'm hearing you all talk, especially about the archives, there are so many of those very same, or similar archives in so many places around this country. I'm thinking here in New Jersey of a couple of people that I have access to, and they have tons of things. And so as I think about just the foresight that a lot of people in our community have had to hold on to things, it's such a blessing that we still have access to those things. And so I just want to take a minute to do a station identification. If you're just joining us, you are watching The Power of Educating Our Own. Tonight, we are talking about the documentary Clara's Fruit. And we have the producers with us, and we've been talking all things about the inspiration of even coming up with the idea to do this and the impact of this film. And so I do want to just acknowledge some people that are watching. And so we have Dr. Patricia, one of your friends, joining us from North Lauderdale in
Oh,
Florida. And
okay.
so I'm sure you know who that is. We have uh, Cornbread Corner, I love that name, joining us from the Philly area. Assalamu alaikum. We have Imam Ibn Samir Mutakabir. He's from Charlotte. And so, assalamu alaikum to him. Let's see, who else do we have? We have Brother Dean Harris, who gives the salams. And I'm just kind of pulling through here. I think I caught everyone. And if you're on and you haven't let us know where you're from, just drop us a line and let us know where you're watching from. And so I do have. We were able to sort of load up the trailer. Is so let's go ahead and get the trailer going, and let's hope that I can manage this technology.
Bismillah.
Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, staff and students of the number one Islamic school in America, Muhammad Schools of Atlanta. Today is February 16th, 2024. Please hold the hands in place for dua.
Assalamu alaikum. Being the principal of a private Islamic school, definitely has its challenges, but they're nothing compared to how the school system started. Nearly 90 years ago, a dream was planted by my great-grandmother, Sister Clara Mohammed.
And we're back. And so, that was a teaser for you all who who have not seen the film yet. And so I do want before I know before we sort of land this plane today, we'll tell people how to watch it, right? Because you all have made this thing bigger than life, and I'm so proud of the fact that you've been able to do that. I don't know if you all see it like that, but it definitely comes across to us as you all have made this bigger than life, and we absolutely love it. I did have one more person who wanted
Thank
to
you.
chime in, so I have this is actually Imam Hakeem Jenkins out of New York. He says, Alhamdulillah, my son and I love this segment. And so shout out to Imam Hakeem in New York. So yeah, let's jump back into the conversation. So I mean I there's so many things that this film sort of like sparks in your mind to want to ask questions. And I really want to know like more about the filmmaking process, right? Because one of the things that we've kind of been talking about indirectly is this preservation of history, right? And so, one, I want to know, I want us to talk about why that's important, right? And then, two, like, how hard is it to to make a film? Because And there are all sorts of ways for people to sort of document the history, but filmmaking is kind of cool, right? So I
For
want
sure.
to know, like, how hard is it? So one, the importance of preserving the history, and then two, how hard is it to make a film?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, community, cultural, just preservation in general of truth is. Let me start with that. Preservation of truth is just a part of who we are as Muslims, right? And then I think also preservation of truth is something that is so critical for Black people globally. Whether it's in the States, whether it's in Africa, no matter where. It's important for all people, but I have to, I'm speaking to my people, right? So it's extremely important because the reality is there's just so much information, so much stimuli, so much noise that we're all filtering through these days, that if the things that truly, truly matter don't get preserved, they get lost, they get forgotten, they get erased, or they get altered in a way that we do not have control, of the narrative, right? And not control in this way where we're the authority, but control in a way where the people that are a part of the community should be the voice of the community, and that voice can only be preserved if all generations within that space are kind of working together to keep a thread intact, right? And I think we're in a space now where I think Sister Karan mentioned it earlier. Our community is aging, right? And if there isn't intentional efforts, and it doesn't have to be in this form of like a feature, a film per se, but if there are intentional efforts for the stories to be preserved, then they're truly going to be gone. And I hate to make it sound that bleak, but I think that is the reality in a lot of ways. And then on to part two, I think in terms of yeah, filmmaking it's very fun. Honestly, it's like I get time. I don't really have a concept of time when I'm in the space of like creating and being an artist. And it's very fun. On the other side of the coin, it's a very uh, um, it's a very I don't want to find my words and use it the right way. I want to say it's like it's not stressful, but it is something you have to be very, I think, meticulous about and how you execute it, right? Depending on your taste and your style, just like a chef, right? There could be 5 chefs in the room that all are assigned to make a burger, and every burger is going to taste different, but they all making a burger. But
Yeah.
some person might take 30 minutes to make this burger, somebody else may take 5 minutes to make the burger. So I think we were
Yes.
just being extremely intentional about the art making of it all. Like, yes, we want to collect this information. Yes, we want to hit record and make sure we get everything, but we also want to be very thoughtful about how it looks, how it sounds, how it feels. So as you saw, there are these fictional moments that we have in the film that intercut with the documentary moments. We were really intentional about making Khalil, the principal of the school in Atlanta, be a part of the film because he's the great grandson of Sister Clara Mohammed, right? That's like a very unique thing from a bloodline perspective to say 90 years later, you're now a principal of the school that your great grandmother, who you never actually met, founded, right? That's powerful from an emotional perspective. But let me stop because I can go on for a long time and just keep going. So let me stop.
Oh,
And
that's it. I would love to add too is,
absolutely,
oh, go
go
ahead.
for it. No, you go for
No,
it.
I mean, I always carry this testimony that actually Morgan you shared with me when we first started, which was a part of some advice that I think a professor gave you, which was, if, if you don't write your own stories, then you're given that's a permission for other people to tell that, and you are the best person to do that. We need to take ownership of our stories. Um, it's obviously paraphrased from the advice that your professor gave you that you cascaded to me, but I've always stuck with that. And then when you're thinking about the actual filmmaking process, there's the hyper creatives, Morgan, Rashad are those people. But then also when you're thinking about the producing standpoint, what happens pre-film, while you're filming, and doing all that, and then the after too. So really being intentional with creating, like, what do you want the story, what do you want the visuals to look like, creating these mood boards, and having that, like, that pitch deck, because other people, you have to be able to create buy-in for the people we're going to, right? I'm sure when Morgan approached you, Sister Quran, you wanted to know, kind of, at least have something to react to. So if I had to give advice, is really spend that time, at that front part, is really getting organized of what story you're trying to tell. And obviously there's room for, input and collaboration, but you have to be able to do that if you're doing crowdfunding. And I think we wouldn't have been able to do it if we weren't as clear when it came to the crowdfunding of what our goal is, what the money is going for, and creating the resources to put the film into action afterwards, so that it can live beyond, us being at, all the screenings and the events, but empowering the people to continue the story, and having resources and clarity in how you're communicating that is really, really important.
Absolutely. And so I want our viewers to know where they can see this film. I mean, you all have had it in several different places, and significant places at that, right? So I want you to tell us about, where they can see it, and also like what that process was like, because you're going to tell it, but like PBS, that's like no small feat. So tell us
Alhamdulillah.
about those.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. There are a few different places where you can watch Clara's Fruit. You can go to pbs.org online and search for Clara's Fruit. You can watch it there. You can go to clarasfruit.com, our website. You can watch it on the first page of the website. You can also go on YouTube and search for Clara's Fruit. There's an entity called Real South that's a PBS affiliate that has a YouTube page. So there are three resources there for you to watch it for free. And alhamdulillah, in terms of us being able to be in the position to have the film distributed, was not something that we knew was going to happen. At the onset, it was very much just answered prayers throughout this process of making this film, because the kind of sobering reality is that short films in the broader film industry aren't looked at as like some economic, vehicle to, return a lot of, investment, or, these things. You make a short film, it's kind of like, share it with your people, and you made your film. But for PBS to say yes to our project and reach out to us and say we'd like Clara's Fruit to be a part of this film, that actually came through a film festival. So we were a part of the Atlanta Film Festival. Rashad and I got to attend in person, and during that in-person experience, PBS extended a distribution deal to us for the film to be able to be distributed, so that everybody can access it, alhamdulillah. And yeah, so it was really, I don't want to say it was that quote unquote simple, but it was so many unknowns and non-guarantees. Like, it's not guaranteed that we get into a film festival. We got into the Atlanta Film Festival. It's not guaranteed that when you're in a film festival that a distributor is going to be there and show interest, in your film. But alhamdulillah, like, both of those things happened, for Clara's Fruit and for the team.
I love it. And what I hear is be present, be intentional, have vision, stick with your plan. I hear all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this to me is legacy building. You are building the legacy, and inshallah, in 50 years, 100 years, that film will still be around, even if none of us are. And people will have that to be able to know the story of Sister Clara Mohammed. And the other thing that I think about is the magnitude of content that you collected that you couldn't use. I hear you over and over again. So we didn't use that. We didn't use that. That's a lot that you were not able to use that you were able to collect. So I have two questions. One, is there a follow-up film that you will do using some of that other content? And two, clarasfruit.com has more than your film there. You've done some extended things where you've allowed the community to continue to contribute. I'd like for you to talk about that as well.
Yeah, definitely want Nia to speak on that piece in terms of the website and just the social impact strategy that includes this nationwide oral histories project that we've already kicked off. But in terms of let's just say all the extra footage that we got during the filmmaking process. So I don't know if that necessarily will be turned into another film, but I think there is an opportunity for, whether it's on our website or another kind of place, for all of that interview content to live. I definitely think it's worth that. We just have to kind of internally plan around that, for our team, because our website, even though it's live, it's actively being worked on right now with the web design team. But I'll pass it over to Nia in terms of just the website, and I want to hype Nia as well as just the core of the social impact team, which includes folks that aren't on this call, but Aida, Aliyah Rashid, Malika Umar. These are it's a core of individuals who've really taken the reins of our vision for a social impact strategy, and kind of just seeing it come into fruition. And it's being supported even by Harvard's Graduate School of Education. They have this initiative called the Black Teachers Archive, and the impact strategy is now being supported by that. So Nia, please share everything that's going on with the website and the impact strategy.
Yes, absolutely. So, yes, I challenge everybody to at least go and open up the website and navigate it. Super fun and user friendly. Part of the impact strategy, what we've done so far and are continuing to do is, one, we've created discussion guides where we're encouraging people to, yes, open up that PBS film, encourage your audiences or people to engage with the film using the dialogue and discussion questions in there. There's some historical background, and then even some tips and tricks on how to host a screening in there as well, that kind of helps you create themes and focus areas for how to just talk about the film. And then the archive that Morgan was mentioning, is what we've done is we want to hear from, whether you're a teacher, a student, an alumni, regardless of however you've been connected or impacted by the Sister Clara Mohammed Schools and the network, to share their testimonies. So whether that be sending in audio clips, we've seen photos, scans from yearbooks, so many different things, voice notes that people can submit to us. We'll take it all, where we're asking them to share their reflections of the impact that the school has made, and what the school experience has meant to them. And so we've gotten a lot from across the United States already so far, and continuing to do that. So we welcome anybody to share this with their peers and their networks, and we want to hear from them as well. And this is your chance to be part of the archival process. And that can be easily found on the website. Well, there's a section that you can submit your stories as well. And let us know if you want to host a screening.
And one more thing, just to add there, we've created what's called a learning lab for educators, community members, anyone that's interested. So the Smithsonian Museum has this digital experience called Learning Labs, where educators essentially can compile and curate a somewhat like a lesson plan associated with a particular subject matter. And so we partnered with a couple of individuals to create a Clara's Fruit learning lab that's available on the Smithsonian site. We don't have it's not a way for me to drop a link in there in the chat right now, but we can definitely follow up with the CMS Network with that resource as well.
Awesome. And so, as we round out the celebration of Founders Week, what message would you like to leave with our students, our parents, our educators in this system about carrying forward the legacy of Sister Clara Mohammed?
Rashad, kick us off.
All big things start from an idea, you know. A lot of times we place these limitations on ourselves when we were capable of so much more. I remember like being in managing service organizations class, and my teacher, he was a professor, he wrote like these squiggly lines on the board, and he was asking us, what do we think it is? Most people were like, it looks like trash or whatever. And I remember he asked us specifically, what would we say it was if we were like 5 years old? This one guy was like a helicopter blade. People were like all these other grand things. He was making the point that we've been conditioned to limit our thoughts, you know, and to not think as big as what we're capable of. And I think we have to remain cognizant of that because you're capable of so much more.
I'd say in a similar vein, I've been seeing a quote going around lately that big things start in little rooms, and I think that in terms of if we look at what Sister Clara Mohammed did, it started in her living room, in her home, right? It started this homeschool system, the largest Muslim private school system in the country, in America, started in someone's home and expanded to nearly 50 schools across the country. And so this idea of, you know, how to bring that to present day, truly being intentional about, you know, what is happening in our homes, what conversations are happening at our dinner tables, in our living rooms, with our children, with our nieces and nephews, with our siblings, with our neighbors. What's happening in those conversations, and how is it contributing to the future of our children? I think that's what I want, you know, folks to leave away with, no matter what community, you know, they're associated with. And then in terms of speaking directly to our community, I think it's, you know, really boils down to, you know, what are we doing and what are we going to do to keep this train moving, you know, to keep expanding, to keep building. I've been a part of a few community-centered screenings, most recently in South Carolina. Sister Marsha was there as well. And there was so much just energy in the room after the screening and during the panel conversation around just what are we going to do to keep this thing going, right? And it's not just vision, but it's the follow up and the action, and that's the part. Even with filmmaking, that becomes the hardest part. Sometimes you have this creative vision that everybody can get excited about, and then the follow up is the true labor. All right, that's the true labor comes in the follow up, and not just the vision. But alhamdulillah, I think we're all encouraged, and this film is just a small part of how we want to, you know, contribute to things continue to go in that direction.
Absolutely. And so, you know, this has been a wonderful conversation. The film is only, is it what, like 15 minutes?
15 minutes, yeah, just about
15 minutes, but the layers and the scaffolding that sort of can come from this 15-minute film and the impact from it is like far reaching. And so
yeah.
I'm always impressed. And yeah, we were in North Carolina together when it was shown, and you know, people were really excited, right? Because they lived through it. They lived through it, whether it was a teacher or a principal or a student. They lived through it. And sometimes when we're in the midst of something, we don't know just how special it is until, you know, somebody tells the story and you're like, yeah, I was there. I actually did that and I was a part of it. So kudos to you all for being receptive to the inspiration that was given to you to put this forward. And we're encouraging our educators, our teachers, our school system to use this film right in your classrooms. Use it for remembrance, but also use it for education. There's so much to be able to sort of build out for our students in hearing this story. I know we played it. We have a Clara Mohammed Weekend School here in Newark, New Jersey, and so we played it for our students one day, and we did a Q&A session with them, and they were engaged. They were engaged, and they were asking questions, and they were giving commentary, and so there's a certain pride that comes with seeing the film and knowing that you are connected to it.
Right.
So again, thank you all for what you've done with this, and we're looking forward to some more. And I don't know what some more looks like.
Yeah, we are too. We are
If
too.
you have any projects that that you sort of have in the works, let us know. Let us know what those are.
Absolutely.
But say it again.
Absolutely.
Oh, for sure. And so we would love to have you back on with those. And so this has been the power of educating our own, right? This is what we do. We share stories that help us to get to the next level. And sometimes that next level is connected directly to the schools and the educators, and sometimes it's connected to us as a community. We encourage you all to visit. Let me pull up the website. Hold on, because I don't want to miss this. We are encouraging you all to visit www.clarasfruit.com, and there you can watch the film. It connects you right to PBS, right? Yeah. And then we also shared on there, they also shared on there the access to the Learning Lab. Now I do have the link for that, but I don't think you're gonna write all of this write all of this down, but I'll put it on the screen anyway for those who are going to see this at a later date. But that is the connection to the Learning Lab. And so are there any last words that any of you want to share?
I just want to say thank you to all three of you, to your whole team, because what you did took courage, just like what Sister Clara Mohammed did took courage. What you did took courage. And so as a community, as Marsha said, we're proud and very excited. And you have built a momentum that's spreading around the country. And we even have a Clara Mohammed School in Bermuda, so in the USA and abroad. So thank you on behalf of the Clara Mohammed School Network and all of our schools in our system.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you all. Thank everyone. I just want to extend a big gratitude to not only you all here, but the entire Clara Mohammed Schools Network, because I know we've had a couple of even Zoom meetings in the early part of the journey where we were telling y'all like, hey, we're trying to make this film and we're raising this money, and these are all the things. And then beyond that, everyone that's watching on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching, thank you to those that contributed to our crowdfunding campaign, who made a dua if they couldn't even contribute to the campaign, but if they did both, like all of the things that the reshares, the reposts, throughout the journey, it's all connected to how the film got made, right? Independent filmmaking it's a very laborious mountain, to climb, because you're not, quote unquote, backed by these big studios, etc. But this is how it is. Like we as communities across this country, across this world, we gotta pull from our own resources, and that's what we did to make this project come to life. So thank you all. Alhamdulillah.
Yes.
I didn't know if you all wanted to share something.
Dr. Patricia, you're on mute.
Echoing everything that Morgan said. Seriously, we couldn't have done it without you all, truly.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a community effort. We appreciate that.
I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, I was on mute. But I just want to say that you are an inspiration to young adults, young people, young filmmakers. And I have a grandson who's interested in film, and he's constantly asking questions, and he seems like he's interested in telling somebody's story. But you've told the story of Sister Clara Mohammed, and that's an inspiration to those young filmmakers out there, because you're still very, very young, and and you did it, and so continue to do it, and may God continue to bless you.
I mean, thank
I
you.
mean,
Thank you.
Thank you.
this has been the power of educating our own. It is a podcast hosted by the Clara Mohammed Schools Network, and we are here every Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us again next week as we have another insightful, beautiful, inspiring conversation. Until next time, assalamu alaikum. Peace.
Assalamu alaikum.
Bye, y'all.
Sister Clara Mohammed, a black Muslim woman from Macon, Georgia, was an extraordinary leader and pioneer. Her contributions, especially in the development of Islamic education in America, paved the way for thousands of Muslim families to take ownership of their children's future, starting at a time when homeschooling was illegal in the United States. She eventually established a network of schools that was later named Sister Clara Mohammed Schools in her honor by her late son, Imam Warith Din Muhammad, rahimahullah. Sister Clara Mohammed helped to establish the important role women had in early Muslim American history and was an inspiration to future generations of leaders. Without her, there would not have been a nation of Islam, or the unique Sunni Muslim community that evolved from it, one that was acutely aware of the concerns and aspirations of women. May Allah have mercy on Sister Clara Mohammed.